Good evening. Tonight's report focuses on a developing defense procurement issue involving Canada, Sweden, and the United States, as Swedish defense company Saab formally proposes that Canada purchase and manufacture its fighter aircraft domestically, while promising significant industrial and employment benefits. Saab, the maker of the Gripen fighter jet, has approached the Canadian government with a partnership plan that includes cooperation with Canadian aerospace manufacturer Bombardier. According to the company, the proposal could generate up to 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs across Canada. Saab says that if Ottawa selects the Swedish aircraft for its military fleet, the work would include local upgrades, domestic production of parts, and final assembly and testing carried out inside Canada. The company has also stated it is prepared to transfer technology and support the buildup of Canadian industrial capability to sustain the aircraft independently. What began as a routine modernization effort has now developed into a broader diplomatic and strategic discussion. Canada originally planned to replace its aging fleet of CF-18 fighter jets with a new generation aircraft, complete the purchase process, and proceed quietly with the upgrade. Instead, the decision has drawn attention from the Pentagon, raised concerns within NATO, and placed Ottawa at the center of an unexpected geopolitical debate. Officials had described the replacement program as straightforward. The expectation was that Canada would sign the paperwork for the American-made F-35 and continue along a long-established path of defense cooperation with the United States. The process was presented as technical and procedural, rather than political. However, as Canadian decision-makers began seriously evaluating Sweden's JS-39 Gripen as an alternative, the tone of communication reportedly shifted. According to the article, discussions moved beyond routine consultation. Private messages were delivered through diplomatic channels, and those messages carried clear weight. The core warning suggested that selecting the Gripen could bring consequences. These were not public announcements, but rather direct communications between governments. Canada did not suspend its review process. Instead, it continued examining its options while making a clear position known. Officials signaled that Canada would not outsource its air sovereignty. That statement marked a significant moment in the discussion, because it suggested that operational control and national authority were central considerations in the procurement decision. The issue, as described, was not about the capability of the F-35 itself. The aircraft is acknowledged as capable. Nor did the situation indicate that Canada intended to step away from NATO or weaken its ties with the United States. Canada remains committed to both. The point of tension was the broader structure of alliance defense arrangements and the level of independence a country retains when operating certain platforms. On paper, Sweden's Gripen should not have been controversial. The aircraft is already used by Sweden, Hungary, Brazil, and the Czech Republic, all NATO members or close Western partners. It has been used operationally, meets NATO standards, and is built to function in challenging environments. Yet the reaction from Washington suggested that the matter carried wider implications. The Gripen's design philosophy differs from that of the F-35. Unlike the American aircraft, the Gripen does not rely on software pipelines controlled by the United States. It does not require U.S. approval for integrating weapons systems. Mission data remains under national control, and operational systems are managed domestically. Once delivered, the aircraft is operated fully by the country that owns it. The article notes that if Canada were able to field a modern fighter jet while maintaining complete authority over software, data, and upgrades, it could set an example for other nations. That possibility has drawn attention from U.S. defense planners. Officials reportedly raised concerns related to interoperability, intelligence sharing, and joint operations. Beneath those technical points, however, was a broader concern that other allies might reconsider their dependence on U.S.-controlled systems. Canada's own defense requirements add another layer to the decision. The country is responsible for protecting the second-largest airspace in the world. Much of this territory lies in remote northern regions where infrastructure is limited and weather conditions are severe. Arctic patrols are described not as theoretical, but routine. Russian bomber flights near Canadian approaches have increased, and polar routes are growing in strategic importance. In this environment, response time is critical. Operating conditions in the Arctic place unique demands on aircraft. Jets must start in extreme cold, cover long distances, land on short or damaged runways, and remain operational even when logistical support is strained. Reliability under harsh conditions can matter more than peak performance under ideal circumstances. According to the report, Sweden designed the Gripen with similar assumptions. The aircraft was built with the expectation that air bases could be attacked early and that centralized networks might be disrupted. Gripen pilots trained to operate from highways and improvised airstrips. Ground crews can refuel and rearm quickly using minimal equipment, and small teams can keep the jet operational without large infrastructure. The approach emphasizes survivability and dispersed operations. By comparison, the F-35 is described as relying on deep integration, advanced maintenance facilities, and constant digital connectivity. Its stealth and sensor systems are considered highly advanced, but those systems depend on uninterrupted support structures. If key networks or facilities are disrupted, that dependence can become a vulnerability. The article notes that this difference does not reduce the F-35's capabilities, but highlights contrasting operational assumptions. As these technical and strategic considerations unfolded, the discussion in Ottawa moved beyond simply selecting a replacement aircraft. The decision became connected to broader questions about sovereignty, operational control, and the structure of alliance cooperation. And as those questions intensified, further developments would soon follow, including formal warnings from the United States and new political and economic factors that expanded the debate even further. Those details and the first half of the deeper breakdown come next. Continuing from where we left off, the discussion in Ottawa shifted from a routine procurement decision into a broader strategic review, as the choice between aircraft began to influence questions about doctrine, operations, and national security policy. Modern NATO air strategy has increasingly acknowledged that traditional fixed air bases are no longer guaranteed safe havens. Concentrating aircraft at a small number of highly developed locations may improve efficiency, but it can also increase vulnerability. If those bases are targeted early in a conflict, large portions of an air force can be grounded at once. As a result, planners have been placing greater emphasis on distributed operations, where aircraft are dispersed across multiple sites, including smaller or temporary locations, allowing forces to relocate quickly and continue flying even after disruptions. Within that framework, the Swedish Gripen aligns naturally with dispersed operations. Its design allows it to function from roads, highways, and remote airstrips, reducing dependence on centralized facilities. The aircraft can be serviced and rearmed rapidly by small ground teams using limited equipment. This approach spreads risk and makes air power harder to neutralize. Central command structures still exist, but they are no longer single points of failure. The concept is not described as a replacement for high-end aircraft, but rather as a way to preserve air capabilities under pressure. The article notes that Washington understands this shift in operational thinking. That awareness, however, did not reduce tensions. Instead, the situation escalated beyond technical comparisons between aircraft performance and entered the political and diplomatic sphere. At that point, a direct warning emerged from the United States. According to the report, American officials indicated that if Canada reduced or canceled its planned purchase of F-35 fighters, the United States could increase its own fighter operations inside Canadian airspace. Under the long-standing NORAD agreement, both countries already have authority to cross borders to intercept potential threats. This system has functioned on mutual trust since the Cold War. However, officials suggested that changes to Canada's fleet size could alter that balance. The article references comments made by U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. In remarks reported to CBC News, he stated that Canada's plan to buy 88 F-35 aircraft directly affects continental defense. He added that if Canada stepped back from that plan, the United States would step in. The statement was presented during a period when Canada was reassessing the F-35 contract. That reassessment followed rising projected costs. Over 3 years, the estimated expense of the program increased by roughly $8 billion. In response, Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a review to determine whether the investment continued to align with Canada's economic and defense priorities. The review also took place as relations with Washington were described as strained, including tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. While the F-35 review was underway, Sweden's Saab advanced an alternative proposal. Beyond the aircraft itself, Saab offered domestic production, technology transfer, and job creation. The company projected that local manufacturing and research work could generate approximately 12,600 Canadian jobs. This figure expanded on earlier references to up to 10,000 jobs tied to manufacturing and research activity. The proposal included building components in Canada, conducting upgrades domestically, and performing final assembly and testing within the country. Industry Minister Melanie Joly emphasized that defense spending should not only enhance national security, but also deliver economic benefits at home. According to the article, Saab's offer addressed both of those objectives simultaneously. At the same time, Ambassador Hoekstra expressed opposition to the Swedish option. He warned that selecting the Gripen could weaken interoperability between Canadian and American forces and could require the United States to compensate operationally. He argued that American aircraft might need to fly additional Canadian patrols to maintain continental defense coverage. The implication was that procurement decisions could directly affect operational responsibilities under NORAD.